promise of world peace. A message by the Universal House of Justice to the peoples of the world. World peace is not only possible, but inevitable, is the next stage in the evolution of the planet. Whether peace is to be reached only after unimaginable horrors precipitated by humanity's stubborn clinging to old patterns of behavior, or is to be embraced now by an act of consultative will, is the choice before all who inhabit the earth. Among the favorable signs are the steadily growing strength of the steps towards world order, taken initially near the beginning of this century in the creation of the League of Nations, succeeded by the more broadly based United Nations organization. The scientific and technological advances occurring in this unusually blessed century portend a great surge forward in the social evolution of the planet and indicate the means by which the practical problems of humanity may be solved. Yet barriers persist. Doubts, misconceptions, prejudices, suspicions, and narrow self-interest beset nations and peoples in their relations to one another. The wind of despair, Baha'u'llah wrote, are alas blowing from every direction, and the strife that divides and afflicts the human race is daily increasing. The signs of impending convulsions and chaos can now be discerned, inasmuch as the prevailing order appears to be lamentably defective. The Baha'i faith regards the current world confusion and calamitous condition in human affairs as a natural phase in an organic process, leading ultimately and irresistibly to the unification of the human race in a social order whose boundaries are those of the planet. The human race as a distinct organic unit has passed through evolutionary stages, analogous to the stages of infancy and childhood in the lives of its individual members, and is now in the culminating period of its turbulent adolescence, approaching its long-awaited coming of age. A candid acknowledgement that prejudice, war, and exploitation have been the expression of immature stages in a vast historical process, and that the human race is today experiencing the unavoidable tumult which marks its collective coming of age, is not a reason for despair, but a prerequisite to understanding the stupendous enterprise of a peaceful world. That such an enterprise is possible, that the necessary constructive forces do exist, that the unifying social structures can be erected is the theme we urge you to examine. Whatever suffering and turmoil the years immediately ahead may hold, however dark the immediate circumstances, the Baha'i community believes that humanity can confront this supreme trial with confidence in its ultimate outcome. Banning nuclear weapons, prohibiting the use of poison gases, or outlawing germ warfare will not remove the root causes of war. However important such practical measures obviously are as elements in the peace process, they are in themselves too superficial to exert enduring influence. A few such issues, because of their immediate relevance to establishing world peace, deserve additional comment. Racism, one of the most baneful and persistent evils, is a major barrier to peace. Racism retards the unfoldment of the boundless potentialities of its victims, corrupts its perpetrators, and blights human progress. Recognition of the oneness of mankind, implemented by appropriate legal measures, must be universally upheld if this problem is to be overcome. The inordinate disparity between rich and poor, a source of acute suffering, keeps the world in a state of instability, virtually on the brink of war. The solution calls for the combined application of spiritual, moral, and practical approaches. It is an issue that is bound up not only with the necessity of eliminating extremes of wealth and poverty, but also with those spiritual verities, the understanding of which can produce a new universal attitude. Unbridled nationalism, as distinguished from a sane and legitimate patriotism, must give way to a wider loyalty, to the love of humanity as a whole. Baha'u'llah's statement is, "The earth is but one country, and mankind its citizens." The concept of world citizenship is a direct result of the contraction of the world into a single neighborhood through scientific advances and of the indisputable interdependence of nations. Religious strife throughout history has been the cause of innumerable wars and conflicts, a major blight to progress, and is increasingly abhorrent to the people of all faiths and no faith. Followers of all religions must be willing to face the basic questions which this strife raises and to arrive at clear answers. The challenge facing the religious leaders of mankind is to contemplate, with hearts filled with the spirit of compassion and a desire for truth, the plight of humanity, and to ask themselves whether they cannot, in humility before their almighty Creator, submerge their theological differences in a great spirit of mutual forbearance that will enable them to work together for the advancement of human understanding and peace. The emancipation of women, the achievement of full equality between the sexes, is one of the most important, though less acknowledged, prerequisites of peace. The denial of such equality perpetrates an injustice against one half the world's population and promotes in men harmful attitudes and habits that are carried from the family to the workplace, to political life, and ultimately to international relations. Only as women are welcomed into full partnership in all fields of human endeavor will the moral and psychological climate be created in which international peace can emerge. The cause of universal education, which has already enlisted in its service an army of dedicated people from every faith and nation, deserves the utmost support that the governments of the world can lend it. For ignorance is indisputably the principal reason for the decline and fall of peoples and the perpetuation of prejudice. No nation can achieve success unless education is accorded all its citizens. A fundamental lack of communication between peoples seriously undermines efforts towards world peace. Adopting an international auxiliary language would go far to resolve this problem and necessitates the most urgent attention. Two points bear emphasizing in all these issues. One is that the abolition of war is not simply a matter of signing treaties and protocols. It is a complex task requiring a new level of commitment to resolving issues not customarily associated with the pursuit of peace. The other point is that the primary challenge in dealing with issues of peace is to raise the contact to the level of principle as distinct from pure pragmatism. For in essence, Peace stems from an inner state, supported by a spiritual or moral attitude, and it is chiefly in evoking this attitude that the possibility of enduring solutions can be found. The primary question to be resolved is how the present world, with its entrenched pattern of conflict, can change to a world in which harmony and cooperation will prevail. World order can be founded only on an unshakable consciousness of the oneness of mankind, a spiritual truth which all the human sciences confirm. Anthropology, physiology, psychology recognize only one human species, albeit infinitely varied in the secondary aspects of life. Recognition of this truth requires abandonment of prejudice, prejudice of every kind, race, class, color, creed, nation, sex, degree of material civilization, everything which enables people to consider themselves superior to others. The experience of the Baha'i community may be seen as an example of this enlarging unity. It is a community of some 3 to 4 million people drawn from many nations, cultures, classes, and creeds, engaged in a wide range of activities, serving the spiritual, social, and economic needs of the peoples of many lands. Its existence is yet another convincing proof of the practicality of its founder's vision of a united world, another evidence that humanity can live as one global society, equal to whatever challenges its coming of age may entail. If the Baha'i experience can contribute in whatever measure to reinforcing hope in the unity of the human race, we are happy to offer it as a model for study. The great peace of the world is now near. This is the peace for which people have been hoping for many years. It will certainly come. It may come only after great suffering. Or people may agree to accept peace now. This is the choice which all people now have. There are signs that peace is now possible. Cooperation has grown between nations. And scientific means exist to administer a unified, united world. But false beliefs and national self-interest block progress. Baha'u'llah said, "The strife that divides and afflicts the human race is daily increasing, as the prevailing order is lamentably defective." People believe that selfish and aggressive behavior is basic to human nature, but this is false and blocks the will to take steps to peace. The Baha'i Faith understands the conflict in the world today as a stage leading to the unity of mankind. To begin to build world peace, we must accept that we are now in the troubled stage before maturity, and that this stage will finally reveal the full measure of mankind's destiny on earth, the innate excellence of his reality. Instead of religion, many people today have turned to material comforts or man-made social systems. But these systems have not promoted unity and peace. They have exalted the state, market, or one group of people over others, and have produced social problems and hopelessness. These systems must now account for their failure. By exalting material comforts, they have impressed people with the false idea that mankind is basically selfish and aggressive. Now the leaders of mankind must be able to discard ideas that no longer work, and with firmness of will consult in unity to find and act on good solutions. Banning certain weapons or settling specific conflicts is not enough. Steps to remove the basic causes of war and achieve lasting peace must be truly general and worldwide. Racism must be overcome by laws upholding the oneness of mankind. Extremes of wealth and poverty cause great instability, calling for a new, spiritually based, worldwide attitude. Nationalism must give way to the love of all humanity. Leaders of religions must resolve their differences for the sake of peace. The equality of women is needed to produce new social attitudes leading toward peace. Universal education should teach world citizenship. There must be a universal auxiliary language. It is important to stress 2 points. First, we must be firmly committed to resolving the specific issues above. Issues not usually connected with peace, like signing treaties. Second, we need to raise and fix our attitude on the spiritual principles, an attitude which will guide us to find permanent solutions for peace. The basic question is how to change the present world of conflict into a world of peace. World order can only be based on a firm knowledge and acceptance of the oneness of mankind. This is a spiritual principle that requires us to leave behind prejudices of all kinds: race, class, color, creed, nation, sex, degree of material civilization. Permanent peace is an important stage, but not the final goal, which is the unification of all peoples of the world into one family. The Baha'i community is proof of the possibility of this unity today. It is a single social body of 3 to 4 million people of many nations, cultures, classes, and religious backgrounds, working by consultative principles to serve the spiritual, social, and economic needs of the people in many lands. If it can help to give hope to the unity of mankind, we are happy to offer it as a model for study. Hello, I'm Rod Clarkin, and today I'm going to be sharing with you a program entitled Glimpses of Africa, Tanzania. This program was taken while I was living in Tanzania from 1975 to 1978. It's a program about the culture, the history, the geography, and the wildlife of Tanzania. Tanzania has been called the Dark Continent. People call it the Dark Continent because they didn't know anything about it. The Europeans initially were in the dark about it, in the same way when we're in a dark room, we don't know what to see, we don't know what is there. The first people to come to Tanzania came on boats. They came on boats like this one here. It's called a dhow, and this dhow was used, the trade winds, to bring the Arabs to Tanzania and East Africa. They still use these dhows today, and they travel back and forth. When the first Arabs came, they left the Arabian Peninsula following the trade winds, and they established their kingdom on a little island entitled Zanzibar. Zanzibar was very rich in spices and had a very good climate. Sultan there built a kingdom, and this is the ruins of one of the palaces there. That island is still very rich, but doesn't produce as much as it used to produce at one time. It is largely a communist type of government there. This was the island where many of the slaves and the gold and ivory were brought when the explorers came to exploit much of the wealth of Africa to take to India and Europe. Just across the water, about 40 miles, we come to the capital, Dar es Salaam. People in the coastal areas live in a very simple fashion. They mainly grow rice, they fish, they get food from the trees and such that grow in the area. When the Arabs came over 500 years ago, they discovered people living in very simple dwellings. These dwellings were made mostly of sticks and grass, and they had, of course, a very primitive type of lifestyle. The Arabs brought with them their culture, their religion, which is Islam, and now most of the people who live on the coastal regions are Muslims. They also brought their way of life. They brought their language, which was Arabic. And as a result, the language of East Africa, Swahili, is largely derived from Arabic. Swahili word for hello is jambo. And jambo basically is one of the greetings that you can use throughout East Africa. People, though, in the villages and out in the bushland still live in very simple circumstances with no running water, no electricity, and not much change from the last 100 years or so. We're going to go inland a little bit and see how the inner parts of Tanzania look. As we travel inland, we come to more of a savanna-type region. Here we find two of the most fascinating and largest trees in the world. These are baobabs. They grow to be over 1,000 years old, and they grow to get very huge trunks, sometimes 20 and wider feet in diameter. The Swahili have a story about the baobab and how it used to be so big and proud and old that it used to brag to all the other animals that it was the most important of God's creation. And as a result, God decided to teach it a lesson. And so it uprooted it and stuck it in upside down. And that's why the baobab looks like it does today. The baobab is, also has a very tangy kind of fruit that you can eat, and was something that we would enjoy throughout our stay there. As you travel further inland, you come into an area where the peoples have a highland. It's called the Usambara Mountains. The Usambara Mountains have a lot of coffee and tea, and one of the surprising things is how cold it can be there. Just on the other side of the Usambara Mountains, you come again to another savanna region which has a lot of thorn bushes and shrubs and such. And if you look closely in the background there, you'll see something that's white. When the explorers first came, they didn't know what that was. They couldn't believe that there would be snow on Africa, but that's what they thought. So they went back to Europe and told the scientists there. And the scientists said, no, that's impossible on the equator to have snow. But the explorers, who were mostly missionaries, came and climbed to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, the tallest mountain in Africa, and discovered that, yes, there was snow there. Mount Kilimanjaro is 19,340 feet tall. It's the tallest mountain, as I said, in Africa. It's a volcanic mountain, and I climbed it twice. The first time when I was living there with my brother, and the second time in 1979 when I led an expedition back to East Africa to climb the Kilimanjaro and to do research on the Serengeti. My wife and I also lived on the slopes of Kilimanjaro, and we taught school there. The girls' school was about 4,000 to 6,000 feet tall, and it was very cold. The area is very rich. It has volcanic soil, and it has a lot of bananas are grown for the consumption of the local people, and a lot of coffee is grown for export. While we lived there, we lived in this house, which was a very nice house, but it didn't have electricity and it didn't have running water, which meant we would have to go down to the bottom of the hill where we could get our water, and also where the girls from the school would go and wash and bathe. This is one of the ladies. The different groups of Africa have so many different customs and languages and such that it's hard to characterize them. This is the Chaga tribe, and they have become very progressive in many of their ways of farming and government. We also lived right near a village, and that village was where we would go and get our fruits and such, because there was very little to buy in Tanzania, being one of the poorest countries in the world. It was an area where the stores would have maybe 4 or 5 items in it, and the transportation was very primitive. We would ride this bus that was way there in the background, and that bus would take us to the main town, and sometimes we'd have as many as 30 people on this bus. That's not counting goats and chickens.